So Debbie, we're 1 year into GDPR, or just over 1 year into GDPR now. What have been the real kind of highlights that you've seen in organisations in terms of implementing data protection controls across the organisation? And what have been the challenges?
So some of the biggest challenges are getting the buy-in, as you can imagine. A lot of companies should have had data protection built in any event, but because obviously of the high-profile issues with the potential risks of fines, etc., companies are now wanting to be seen to take it more seriously, and indeed some of them are. But that's not necessarily in the right way. There have been examples. So some of the companies I've helped have been media companies, pharmaceutical companies, technology companies, etc. And so while some of them will be quite pragmatic and have quite what I call a calm approach to it, others have been running around like headless chickens. I don't know if that translates to everybody here. But I think that the key thing is, you've got to do, you can't expect it to be a quick fix. And some companies have tried to suddenly, buy some sort of tool, embed it in an organisation with the hope that suddenly the problem goes away. And it's not quite that straightforward, as we'll probably explore in a minute.
Super. Olga, any perspectives from your organisation?
Well, there were a couple of actually very positive experiences with the GDPR implementation. We were very mindful early on that the GDPR regulatory change program was part of a broader privacy framework and was part of a broader program for us. So I was very keen not to turn it into a project that would die on the 25th of May, with everybody going, okay, well, that was a bit of a anticlimax and move on. So for us, it was very much 25th of May was the start of a new regime in Europe and has remained part of our framework. And so we're constantly looking at ways that some parts of the business could borrow from Europe and other parts of the business might not. For example, we're about to implement the California changes, and they're very much informed by the fact that what's happening in California. I'm sorry to any California advocates, it's not quite GDPR, but the experience of GDPR has really given the nuance and the authority. The other win, which is related to what I've just said, is that we decided to have a project manager for the program. Wasn't a lawyer, wasn't a compliance professional, but was just a real doer. And I can't thank him enough. That really enabled all of the technical expertise to be driven at a very operational level, and in a multinational organisation with multiple time zones, that was an absolute win. And I have to say, a lot of compliance professionals and risk professionals felt a little bit nervous about that. My God, how would he go? Well, he did great. Yeah. So yeah, there were some of the highlights. So kind of the teamwork and the ongoing nature of the program was a win.
I think that really resonates for me as well. Actually, having a professional in there whose sole role it is to project manage a program. Lien, was it the same experience in Salesforce? Did you have a project manager or a project director that's led things?
I'd love to say that GDPR was as this song that was playing in harmony, different teams knowing when to start and to prioritize. It wasn't exactly like that, but I think we got there at the end, obviously. There are different things, or lessons learned, or things that I think went really well, and things that I would have done differently. But ultimately, it was really an opportunity to see privacy differently. And we talked a little bit about that, seeing the GDPR as an opportunity. But I do think that if you need to convince your organization with saying there's going to be a fine, it'll kind of probably help a little bit, but that's not really what's going to do it. So if you think of it as trust and making or understanding that actually the consumer or the end customer has expectations, and you take these seriously, and through our model we're able to tell our customers, actually, listen, if you're using our services or if you want to do privacy well, think of it as an opportunity. Think of these things whereby you can meet the expectations of the individuals or the data subject and turn that around. I think the conversation becomes a lot easier. And so when I talk to my marketing teams or when I talk to the technical teams, it was really around, not you need to do this by then because GDPR is coming. Because then they'd say, GDRP, we're based in APAC, we don't really care, what is this about, whatever. So that didn't quite work. But if you talked about it as in, okay, you're in marketing, but actually, how can we send information to individuals that want to see this information? Like, how can we do that differently? Then I think you come a long way. So that was really the right approach, at least for us.